American Water Polo.
Hi, this is Damon Newman from American Water Polo, and we're here today with Joe Tristan from Penn State Behrend. Um, we're here to learn more about the recruiting process at Penn State. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good. How are you, Damon?
I'm doing well. We're hanging in there.
That's for the most part, right?
Yeah, that's all we can do, right? Just making the best of it.
That's all we can do.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and about Penn State Behrend.
Well, I've been at Penn State. This is I'll be going into my 18th season in the fall.
Wow.
And I started out here in 2003. I'm originally from Southern California myself. I was a swimmer for majority of my life, making it to the 2000 Olympic trials and whatnot. But I played water polo in high school. While I was swimming in college, I played some club water polo. But swimming was my biggest thing. That's what I was, I was at a Division I university competing and whatnot. So that was my biggest component. But I was coaching water polo at the high school level out there. And then I started the club water polo program at Eastern Michigan University. I did that for a year before I actually took this job in 2003. The funny story about that was when the job opened and posted, and when I walked on campus was only about a week and a half.
Okay.
So I literally, the job posted, I applied, I got an interview probably like 2 days later. I was on campus that weekend. I got the call Sunday night saying that I got the job, and then I moved on campus that Wednesday, and then school started that following Monday.
Wow,
So,
they got their man in a very quick time, and you've obviously established a long-standing tradition now. Would you say 18 years?
18 years, yep.
That's awesome.
Well,
awesome.
I'll be going into my 17th year working, 18th season. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Right, not counting a loss
Right.
of this women's season, right?
Right.
So tell me a little bit about the process. The recruiting process a little bit at Penn State.
Well, Penn State is a different beast when it comes to the recruiting side of things. I mean, I do the same things that everybody else does. I get my lists, I watch players, and whatnot. I send out mailings and send out emails, send out, nothing different than most other coaches, and whatnot. And then it's just a matter of just phone calls, texts, and emails, and whatnot. Trying to just stay in touch with the athletes as we go through, and as I get checked off of their lists, some of them get checked off of my lists, and we just kind of move forward. The biggest things that we look at for the recruiting side of things is the athletes that are, open to being on the phone and sending responses back and stuff like that. But it is a different beast in the respect of who we are as an institution, and what we can and cannot do in that respect of being an institution and stuff like that.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about the process and the evaluation on your side and on their side. When you're talking to a PSA and you are going through that process, what are some of the character traits you're looking for that kind of stand out for you that are people you're looking to bring onto campus as Penn State players?
Well, first off is a lot of it has to do with their major and what they're looking at. As I mentioned, Penn State is a different beast in that respect because we are a very technical type of institution in the respect of our engineering program and our business program. We are very highly ranked with our engineering. So, we don't have a lot of majors that some students that like mainly female athletes are looking for, and whatnot. And, we pick up a ton of male engineers type of thing. So I look at the academics. What are they interested in? Sciences and, and engineering and things like that. So their academics are a huge component, especially how competitive we are to get into the institution in that respect. And then once we kind of see that, then we start looking at the athletic side of, what type of athlete they are, how long they've been playing, positional components, and, are they goalies? Are they 2 meters? Are they drivers? And whatnot like that. and those aspects. But it really comes down to the major and whatnot like that.
So you have, you'd say the engineering department is strong within the university, and then your business school. And so you mainly draw in people that are interested in those particular, academic courses or studies.
I try to, those are the big ones that I look at. For instance, our two biggest majors that we offer, our two primary majors, engineering and business.
Okay.
And then, we have 45 different majors,
Right.
mind you, but engineering and business are what we're known for.
Gotcha.
On my men's team, out of the 17 athletes that I have, probably half of them are engineers.
All right.
And then on my women's side, we're a little bit more on the science side. I only have one engineer on my women's side, but we're mainly business and science, like pre-meds. I actually have more nursing. Probably half my women's team is either nursing, or probably even 3/4 of my women's team is nursing or pre-med.
Right.
So
Oh, that's great. So you have, a lot of engineering, a lot of, and then the sciences. That's great. Yeah, those are obviously always, really, challenging,
right.
Areas of study for sure.
And I would probably say within our entire athletic department, we have I think it's something like 340 athletes or something like that. Probably half of them are engineers.
Wow.
So the biggest component is our engineering, and that's one of the hardest parts. On the men's side, it's easy. Men, male engineers, they're easy to find. Female engineers are not. So that's what makes it a little bit more difficult in that respect.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was such a. I knew it was something that was very popular at the university. I didn't realize it was that, that popular and that much of a draw. Obviously for majority of the athletes.
Yep.
So when should an athlete begin the recruiting process?
That's always the question of of the hour, when they should. I always say the earlier the better. Now in the respect of getting in contact, getting on the radar of a coach as early as possible. I mean, even if freshman, sophomore years, that's not bad timing in there and whatnot like that. And it does depend on the talent of the athlete. An athlete that might be looking at a high level D1, they're being recruited as freshmen, trying to get commitments by the time they're sophomores or juniors. So that way they're, so a lot of these D1 schools are 2 or 3 years out on their recruiting.
Right.
They're, this year they're not recruiting for 2021. They're recruiting for 2025,
Right.
So, but in the Division III level, we don't work that way. It's a little bit more year to year. We'll get some juniors that will make some commitments, but mostly it's a year to year, like, and whatnot like that. So, if, the earlier the better, gets you on the coach's radar. And then just the biggest thing is keeping in contact. Don't just send an email as I have for instance, I have a young lady who's a 2022 grad that's emailed me already and whatnot, but she's doing a really good job of keeping in contact with me every so often, just to say, hey, I'm still here. Here's my stats. Here's what happened. Here's what's going on. Over my time, I've had student athletes do that, and I never hear from them.
Right.
They send their email, and then then when it's time, when push comes to shove, they've fallen off of my radar, and I've fallen off of their radar, and whatnot. So the earlier the better is always the best.
Yeah, and like you said, being persistent and keeping contact, and as well as you are the coach of the men's and the women's program. So, do you help out with the swim team at all?
I used to
Okay.
for my, this is my 17th season. This was my first season. When I started out, my job was the head men's, women's water polo, assistant men's and women's swimming.
So
and
there was no off season for you.
Right. And I was a faculty member. So I've been teaching at the school since I started. So that was my job. In the fall, with men's water polo. Then I jump right into the swim season till mid-February. And then I would jump into women's water polo till the end of the year. And then all in between that, I was teaching classes. Now, mind you, I have 2 of my classes that I taught were basic swimming classes, and whatnot. But I do have a lecture course where I'm actually in the classroom and, 30 students and finals and all that stuff like
Wow.
that. So
I didn't know that. I didn't realize that you taught the faculty or the faculty member. That's pretty,
yeah.
it's pretty impressive.
So I was doing all of that. This was my first year where I did not do the swimming. I pulled away from swimming last year. One, to kind of be with my family a little bit more, having 2 kids and whatnot. That was a big component. Was I needed to spend more time with them. I was missing a lot. My daughter was starting to swim, and I was missing a lot of her meets. And so this helped me out to be available more to her swim meets, to see her championships and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that balance is really important.
So, but that's kind of what I did. So this year, this was my first year not doing the swimming. I really enjoyed that aspect. I did miss it. I'm not going to lie. I missed it a little bit, but,
Right.
But being able to see my daughter swim her championships was a highlight, and I don't regret it.
Right. No, that's great. That's excellent. So how would you recommend a PSA prepare for, say, a phone conversation that you're going to call them or they're going to call you? What kind of preparation should go into something like that?
One of my biggest experiences that I've seen is lack of preparedness in that respect, that they don't have questions themselves.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, I'll ask, say, hey, do you have any questions for me? And they're like, nope, I'm good. And you're just kind of like, okay, and then a day later, that same PSA will send you an email with 10 questions.
Right.
And, you're kind of going, okay, what happened here? These are 10 questions. It's not like it was just one question they had. These were 10 questions. So, one of the biggest things I say, have a list of questions that are a list of questions that are a first phone call and a second phone call. Your first phone call, have a list of questions like what you'd want to ask a coach. Then have a second list of questions that are for a second phone call. If that coach calls you back, now you have another set of questions. After that, for me, I try to be more on a personal level. How are things going? What have you been doing? What projects are you working on? Things like that they can tell me about their lives and stuff like that. But that would definitely help them keep a conversation going and whatnot. And that way they have 2 phone calls set up, essentially.
Right. So you're actually being prepared for two phone conversations.
Right.
That's good advice. I like that. So tell me a little bit about now that we're with the COVID outbreak and the loss for some larger tournaments being postponed or canceled. How should a PSA be seen? What would be your recommendation for them?
Game film is good. Some sort of game film. So, I'm not a very big person on highlight films, because they're great in some respect, but they only highlight the moment that they did something really well. Nobody's going to put a highlight film of the mistakes they made. They are only going to put the highlight of, hey, here, this athlete took 10 shots. They scored 5 goals. You only see the 5 goals. Why didn't you show me the 10 shots you missed?
Right.
Because that's just as important to a coach as, the shots you made. Why did you miss those shots? Were they just poor? Were they poor shots, or were they great shots and they just going up against a great goalie? Or was it great defense? So I like game film. I always tell my athletes, send me a quarter. Send me just send me 1 quarter. What do you feel is the best quarter? Just send it to me. I want to see you play. That's going to show me more than anything else, is that quarter of play. I want to see your mistakes. I want to see your successes. If coach is yelling at you, I want to see coach yell at you, and I want to see how you react. It's those things that I want to look at. I just don't want to see you, it cuts to a film where you're just all of a sudden you're up to your toes and boom, you just made a shot. That could have been 1 out of 10 right there.
Right. So right.
So,
Right.
um,
You want to see a the all round game,
yep,
good, bad, or ugly.
yep. Oh yeah. Because the other thing too is a lot of times, sometimes I get to see when they come to the corner, and they're, a lot of times, sometimes I'll get some game film. Parent is on the other side. They're watching as the bench side, and the film can see the players go to the corner. What are you doing in the water? What are you doing out of the water? Are you being a teammate, or are you just kind of sitting in the back?
Hmm.
You know, those types of things. And a lot of times student athletes don't realize what they're doing until actually somebody points it out on film. So
Right. Right.
um,
The film does not lie. Right. As we all coaches to say, the film
yep.
does not lie. Um, so where do you, on a typical recruiting year, a traditional recruiting year, where do you do some of your off-campus recruit, like your off-campus visits to go watch water polo?
JOs was always a big one. We'd go to whether it be up in Northern California or Southern California. That was a big one. That was one of my biggest ones that I would take
Mhm.
during the year. Um, during the year, I would try to get out to Philadelphia for the Beast of the East tournaments.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll head out to Michigan, being my former stomping grounds and some in the respective college. I know the area, and I still have some college or some coaching friends that are still doing it out there. So I'd go out to Michigan, whether it be mostly the Ann Arbor area, that regional I would hit. Um, every few years I might go out to Grand Rapids and hit that district and that region.
Okay.
But Chicago is another one, that I'll go to. That's another big area that I've hit in that respect. So Michigan, Chicago, Philadelphia, California. I've JOs down in Pittsburgh. I'll go to the combine. Nicola's done a really great job with putting together that Pittsburgh combine over the years. So I've been going to that one because it's local, and two, it's you get some pretty decent kids that take a look at you and stuff. Um, uh, every so often, not every year, I'll head down to Florida or I'll head down to Texas or something of that nature.
Okay.
I'll hit Ohio as well, just because it's our neighbor. So that's
Right.
another one that will kind of, I'll hit up a little bit.
Great. Well, those are a lot. Those sounds like a lot of opportunities for athletes to be seen. Um, what advice can you give a PSA that might not that wants to play in college that might not necessarily have the opportunity to play at a large tournament like a large traditional tournament, might not play at a big club, and that doesn't necessarily get that exposure. What would you recommend for them to do?
Just put your name out. The biggest thing that I always see is like athletes that are interested in playing, but they don't think they're good enough. I've heard that one. I never thought I was good enough to play in college, and I said, well, did you ever try? And they're like, no, not really. I just didn't think I was good enough. I said, try. Give it a shot. You never know, and whatnot. There was a young lady that she was a pretty decent high school player. And but she wasn't, in my opinion, I didn't think she was a good D1 player. I mean, I didn't think she would be a very good D1 player and whatnot. But she was like, nope, I want D1. And she ended up going to a D1 school, and she didn't play her first year. By the time she was by the time sophomore year ended, she was either first off the bench or started a couple games, and she was one of their top players her junior year. So
Right.
but she had that motivation that it was going to happen, and she worked hard to do it. But there's not a lot of athletes that do that. They already give it up and be like, hey, I don't want to do this. So I'd say, just get your name out, send it to the coach. You never know. That's what I always tell parents that ask me like, hey, I don't know if she's good enough. Hey, you never know if you don't try.
Right. Yeah,
So
that's a good advice for sure. Can you give me any like common misconceptions? You've been at it for 18 years. Maybe a misconception about the recruiting process that you find PSAs or that deal with?
not all schools are the same.
Okay.
Um, and, you know, the difference between a private school and a public institution are huge. And in the sport of water polo, is is a big component, because we don't have as many teams. In the swimming world, in Division III swimming alone, there's 100 and some odd or 200 and some odd college Division III programs. They can even be broken up by regions in the east, west, northwest, north, south, southwest, and in that respect. In water polo, there in the Division III world, there's 25, or 30 teams in the whole country. And, and on the East Coast, we have 10, 12. I'm trying to think. We have 8, 10 on the East, and then 6, so 16 over here. So, and let's say if we just take the CWPA in and of itself, of all the schools, let's say on the women's side, just the Division III women's championship, with all, I'm sorry, not 16. There's only 10 teams, 10 total teams in the CWPA Division III. And out of those 10 teams that are there, all of them are private institutions except Penn State. Penn State is it's a land grant state institution and whatnot. So, the school, when an athlete looks at all the schools, they're going to have a scholarship or a financial aid package that a private institution can offer, whereas a state institution cannot, won't be able to match that, that package. And I get that question a lot. Like, I don't understand, this institution's offering me this much money. And I said, well, that's a private institution. We're not a private institution. We're a public institution, and whatnot. So, so those are some of the bigger components when we look at all of that, is that not all schools are the same, and whatnot. So that's a big misconception in the respect, in my opinion, I get a lot from the recruits and whatnot, is that they think all the schools that are going to offer them some sort of big financial aid package, when your tuition is 55, or when your tuition, room, board, and fees is $55,000, and they're offering you 35 or 30, then it sounds great. Whereas a public institution like ours, well, if you're an out of state, it's 35,000, tuition, room, board, and fees. So we're already cheaper on paper, but so we're not going to offer you a $30,000 academic scholarship, but we might offer you there might be a $6,000 scholarship that's involved, which in the turn, you're still spending the same amount of money as you were to go to this university with their $30,000 scholarship. So that's really good food for thought, for PSAs to have a really good understanding of, the school that they're talking to, and the resources that, the school has to offer, whether it's, public institution or private school, or, what kind of merit aid you might get or scholarship. And, not all schools, not all schools are the same academically, as well as the financial side. So that's a really, that's a really poignant thought. So Joe, one last thing. What if you have an athlete that's interested in Penn State? What's their next step? What should they do? If an athlete's interested in Penn State, get on our website. Check out our website, our online questionnaire. Fill it out. That is my personal lifeline, is my online questionnaires.
Okay.
That goes right into my database, and that's where I do a majority of my recruiting, is off of that database. Okay. If they send me an email, which any athlete does, they can send me an email. I'll shoot them the questionnaire link and have them fill it out, and whatnot. So all they have to do is just, either shoot me an email, jpt12@psu.edu, or get online, psblions.com, go to our website. Our questionnaires are right there, and they can find ours, fill it out, and then that way I can stay in touch with them. I can stay informed with them and keep sending them emails, sending them texts, and whatnot, keeping involved during this time frame when everything's kind of out of sorts, and you can't really go to a campus and see them, or go to a game and see them. and whatnot. But that's the biggest way to do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's been it's been really informative, Joe, and I really do appreciate the time. Joe Tristan from Penn State Behrend, learn more about what the college has to offer. This is Damon Newman from American Water Polo. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, on our website, AmericanWaterPolo.org. Remember, it's important to stay connected to what's important to you. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Thanks a lot, Damon. Have a great day.
All right, you too.